Call the Brandon Select Board to order. What's the pleasure of the board on the agenda that was posted?
Make a motion to approve as posted.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. Are there any changes to be made?
I'd like to add
Add.
an item to discuss the funding request from the Energy Committee.
Okay, where would you want to do that tonight?
We can do it around between 5 and 6.
Between 5 and 6? Is that okay, before the appointments? Okay. So we'll have like a 5A, Energy Committee funding request. Any other changes? Okay, if not, all in favor of adopting the agenda as it was just amended, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. How about approval of the minutes? There's a hearing we had on May 23rd and a board meeting on May 23rd.
Make a motion to approve both of them.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes as they were presented? Any public comment? If not, all in favor of adopting the minutes as they were submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Item 3, the town manager's report from Mr. Atherton, please.
All right, it's my report for June 13th. A couple of things that have already started, but we'll go over them anyway. V-Trans will be starting work on Route 7 last week. The project begins in the town of Pittsford on Route 7, just north of Route 3, and extends all the way to a point just south of Hawkview Road in Brandon, across from the high school. The work will consist of milling the pavement to a 1.5-inch depth, spot shimming and surface prepping, then paved with a 1.5-inch asphalt. There'll be some guardrail work, replacing damaged sections to bring the full runs into compliance. Shoulder berms that have been built up will be removed. Some ditching, and they will be evaluating for the installation of the centerline rumble strips along that whole area. So I know that's been a spot of concern all the way down. So that'll be happening. And that'll be going through most of the summer, so folks might want to go an alternate route, because they will be holding traffic up. Annual inspection of our closed landfill was completed on May 27th by KAS Engineering. They do our annual inspection every year. They attended the VLCT Regulating Cannabis webinar on May 24th. I did send a presentation to all of you to review, and I just sent some other stuff last week that was part of that presentation as well. Attended the annual Vermont Emergency Management Conference on May 26th at Lake Mooring. Seminars that I attended were on flood resilient communities, Vermont ERAF, which is the Emergency Relief Assistance Fund, and they've made some changes to how they're reporting on the National Weather Service in Vermont, which probably doesn't really apply to most people, but as the emergency management director, I like to see it. So, Arnold District culvert bid opening took place on June 3rd. The apparent winning bidder was Pool and Landscaping at $245,280. The concrete box, it cost us about $79,000, which brings the total construction to $323,000. It's a little bit under what we anticipated, so that's nice, little savings there. Held a meeting on June 8th with Representative Jerome, Representative Shaw, the new Pittsburgh Town Manager, and the Mosquito District Chair to discuss the need for more larvicide funding and best ways to make the request to the Department of Ag. The meeting, the conclusion to it was that the letter should be sent to Anson Tebbets, who kind of oversees everything there with Ag. So that's being drafted by the Mosquito District, and Representative Sean Jerome will be reviewing it before it goes there. So, property appraiser for the League of Cities and Towns was in on June 8th to complete all our appraisals on our town buildings for insurance purposes. And the last thing on here, I think we're probably going to discuss in the meeting here in a little bit, so I will save it for that.
Thank you.
That's what I have this evening.
Any questions from the board for the town manager about his report or other matters?
I have other matters question for
Sure.
you. Thanks for reminding me whenever you see someone who needs to get in. So I understand that our electric car chargers have gone to cost now, which I think is a good idea. And I tried them out to find out what the cost was. And I was incredibly impressed when I saw that the cost for electricity is 19 cents a kilowatt hour, which is exactly what you pay at home. And my experience at car chargers is typically when you charge away from home, you pay a little bit of a premium to get the electricity there. But I was a little bit surprised when they had an add-on charge of 75 cents an hour for parking. And I was just, curious about this, because we don't charge for parking other places in Brandon. And I wondered if you could just look into it for my edification and for the board's perhaps, what kind of flexibility we have in that pricing scheme, whether it's something that we have some control over and thus we could choose to reduce or eliminate the parking fee, or whether this is something that ChargePoint imposes on you because their fee is wrapped up in there somewhere. I don't know, but I thought you would be able to find out.
Sure, I'll look into that.
Okay? I think that was somebody else too. Thanks.
Did someone on Zoom have a comment or something to add about that conversation? No, I think it was maybe just somebody wasn't
Yeah.
muted yet.
Yeah, someone wasn't muted.
Thank you. Anyone else from the board? Questions for the town manager then from the public in attendance in the room? We'll start with the folks in attendance in the room tonight. Judy Bundy?
Okay, I am going to read this because I don't want to get off track, okay? So please bear with me. My name's Judy Bundy. I live at 69 Park Street. And I've had 5 inches of water in my basement from early spring until just recently. Now, the little background is it's not just my house. There are 4 houses in a row on Park Street experiencing this. Number 65 has a new owner, but talking with previous owners, they never had water problems there before. The new owner did some remediation after flooding last summer, and this spring their sump pump ran constantly and didn't do the job 100%. Number 67 is the owners have been there for 14 years, never had a drop of water, and the owners prior to them never had a drop of water, and they were there 12 or more years. And they've had 5 inches consistently all spring. He has no sump pump, so he was pumping it out with a pump and a hose through the driveway, pumped it out several times a day. It would take 1 to 2 hours to pump it out, and it would take maybe 3 or 4 hours to fill up again, and always filled up to about the same place. I'm at number 69. I've been there 18 years. I always have some dampness in the spring, and I have a sump pump. But I had 5 inches of water. I had to go to Blue Seal and buy the boots in order to go down there. And only just recently has the water subsided to the point where it's like wet down there, but it's not inches of water. Number 71, that house has been occupied for about 10 years by the same owner, and I did not speak with her recently, but I know that they did a bunch of work in their basement when they first bought, and although she's had a dry basement ever since, she had wetness this spring, not standing water like I had. But then again, she's a little bit uphill from the rest of us because, as you know, Park Street rises up to meet High Street, and she's on that rise. And the house beyond her, which is much more uphill, was dry. Okay, so that's the background. Now, we notified the town, and the town responded, and soon determined that it was a fresh water problem. It was not sewage, it's fresh water. And I apologize for not keeping a written log of all of these interactions with the town and all the visits and efforts. But my neighbor Sam at number 67 kept daily notes on his phone, so if you need more detail, hopefully he can supply a good amount. The water department responded. Ray Counter came, he checked everything out, he found no defects or leaks. He turned off our water for a whole day in checking it, and he went into the basements of everybody, and then went above and beyond that and brought in some other people to try to help solve the problem, because once he knew that it wasn't the water lines, he didn't stop. He said, this is a problem and we have an obligation to help you. The town responded, and the sewer department, and I'm not quite sure if I'm saying that right, Public Works Department responded, and they were testing the storm sewer system because that was the only other possibility in terms of the freshwater problem. They did a camera test, they did a dye test, they brought back the engineers from Aldrich and Elliott to review the bioswales, and they reported that they thought those were working just fine. And they even had some other folks there, and Dave probably can tell you who else. I got introduced to these people, but there was never any, and we all kind of, I think, were a little lax in that department. We didn't follow up with written comments, we didn't follow up with written statements. I never got the business cards of any of those other people, but nevertheless, they responded to this. They made good faith efforts, although it was spread out over many weeks. At one point, Sam was keeping track, and we were up to day like 57 with the 5 inches of water in our basement. And so finally, like 3 weeks ago, it started to dry out. And we knew it would because spring is over, the thaw is over, things are going down, and we're concerned about getting this addressed during this season, because if we wait until the 1st of November, it's not going to be able to get fixed, or not easily at any rate. So a couple of weeks ago, Sam's basement was dry for 2 or 3 days, and then we had that 4 inches of rain weekend, and his basement filled up with 5 inches of water again, although he said it took about a day for it to fill up. Okay, so now, once the town determined that the new storm sewer was intact and functioning properly, they kind of stopped doing anything. The engineer from Aldrich and Elliott confirmed that they didn't think the problem could be the bioswales. But there was no effort to pursue the cause of this any further. Like, we still have the water, there's something going on there. They did not attempt to hire another engineering company for finding this cause, and I have done, and we've all done little calls and research. This could be incredibly expensive to find out exactly what's going on down there. But our belief is that we haven't done anything in our houses, and we have this problem for the first time in years and years and years. What did happen? The Park Street construction project happened, and we feel that that was the precipitating event, pun not intended, okay? So I accept the findings of the town and its work that the new structures in the ground are not the problem. But I think it's reasonable to conclude that the Park Street construction was the event that changed things there. So we property owners didn't change anything. The street changed. And we've been left to figure out what the solution should be, and we're not equipped to do that. Without an explanation of the cause, can we implement a satisfactory solution? Do we just hire remediation companies without knowing why it's happening? So I just want this situation fixed. I'm not the lady on the lamppost at the Brandon Inn. I don't want to take money from the town. I just want to fix this problem in my basement. My plan is to put my house up for sale, and it's keeping me from doing that. I'm frustrated, I'm angry and disappointed that the town just stopped in its efforts to resolve this once they proved to us that their equipment is functioning properly. I don't think it's fair, I don't think it's right, and I think it is reasonable for us to ask the town to help either figure out what's causing this or help us figure out how to remediate our individual properties.
Thank you, Judy, and I'll just disclose to those at the meeting that Judy and I have spoken about this on previous occasions, so this is just for your information. Dave, does that sound like the extent of what the town has investigated to try to eliminate sources of the problem?
For the most part, other than the fact that the reason that we stopped doing everything that we exhausted everything that we could possibly test, and I mean, had engineers down here, everybody we could think of. But Judy's neighbor, Sam, said that he was going to hire an outside engineering firm, and that was the last I heard of it until Judy walked into my office last week. So, at that point, what were we supposed to do when we were told that there was going to be an outside firm? And I told them multiple times, if it's our problem, we'll fix it, but we can't determine that it's our problem, especially when the backyards and the side yards are wet, but the front yards aren't. You know, we have water issues up on Mount Pleasant this year because we've had so much rain and people that are putting sump pumps in to deal with the high groundwater levels. We had flooding on rainstorms that we've never seen in areas before. So I don't know where else we can go with testing everything that, you know, and the base for Park Street is sand. So there's very good drainage there.
With the engineers that came from Aldrich, is it that?
Actually, Jason's on right now.
Yeah, did they have any observations or hypotheses for, has the level of the road changed significally from what it was?
Well, the thing that's changed is we put bioswales in where standing water used to be, and it drains into our storm drain, and then, you know, daylight.
And they work.
And
Yeah.
they work. You know, we've looked at dailies to see if something might not have gotten hooked up. Tim and I have been out there, we cameraed up and down almost the whole street a week ago.
Uh-huh.
Everything's working like it should.
Yeah. Puzzle.
Except for the 5 inches of water in my basement all spring.
Right.
So, as I said, Judy and I have spoken about this before. I did raise this possibility with her, so this is not news. But the town did remove 3 large mature trees in that general vicinity, and the tree warden is here, but my cursory Googling seemed to indicate that a mature maple could suck up 10,000 gallons of water in a season. And I wonder if perhaps all of the stuff that's happening with the infrastructure is working as it has worked, or as it was designed to work, and maybe what's happening is that water that had been getting sucked up those tree columns is sitting in the ground now.
My response to that is that I would have more confidence in that kind of a solution or a cause, except that Sam's basement was dry. We got 4 inches of rain over the weekend, and his basement had 5 inches of water again within a day. I don't think the trees could have sucked that up, or, you know, I don't think that would have happened just because trees were there, or would not have happened if trees were there.
And you've said that this is water that's coming up from the floor.
It's coming up. The walls are dry, it's coming up from the floor.
Could we ask Jason to make a comment, or see if we missed the boat on something?
If he wants to. I mean, we brought him out there twice too, so.
Sure, so we have Jason Booth, one of the engineers, and Jason, do you have anything you could share with the meeting about this situation up at that southeast end of Park Street?
Sure. I kind of late to the conversation here this evening. I'm sure Dave's kind of gone through many of our discussions with it. You know, being down there, it is, you know, I've been in Judy's basement, I've been in Sam's basement, both of them. In Judy's basement, it does appear that it's coming up from underneath the floor. You can watch the sump pump down, and you can see the water kind of coming in. It does look like it's maybe coming in from, and it's hard to tell watching it kind of seep in through the side and come along the floor. More from the High Street side, hard to say with looking at the sump and just the sump pit. You know, we had some thoughts that Dave and Tim kind of vetted with. There's an old storm drain that comes from High Street and runs down and in sort of in the grass area. And so we had some thoughts for Dave and Tim to televise that storm drain and see if there were any connections there, both going up and going down the street and that old storm drain. It sounds like from the results there that there was no interconnection. One of the considerations was that maybe there was a pipe that was still connected or a pipe that wasn't connected. It doesn't sound like there's evidence of any pipes being connected to that old storm drain. And as far as the road work, the road is actually the crown of the road, or the center line of the road, all of that area, even off to the side, has been lowered slightly. If you recall, there was a very high crown on that road before the project was done, sloped pretty steep off to the sides. We actually dropped that down and made a pitch to go towards the low end, which is closer towards Route 7, and then towards the outlet, which goes out towards the Neshby River. So I don't think the road is an issue. As far as it being a different elevation, if anything, it's lower than it was before. We went back and reviewed pre-design in the stormwater management plan that was completed maybe in 2015, 2016, that identified this as a priority project. There were some test pits that were done and some percolation tests, in the roadway, actually in the grass space, to see if this would be a candidate for infiltration, and the perk rates were incredible. It was very good. The perk rate was, it's all sand, perked very well, and as evidenced during construction, we were pretty deep in Park Street in a couple of areas, particularly with the sewer line, which goes up on sort of the southern side of Park Street, down to maybe 12, 14 feet, and we had the same sand, consistent sand all the way down. We didn't have evidence, we didn't run into evidence of a high groundwater table, which would indicate that the groundwater sits perched for periods of time seasonally. We didn't have evidence of that when we were out on the road digging through, and certainly we weren't that deep out near the homes, which are 40, 50, 60 feet away from where the work was occurring. A lot of this information here, it's not really anything that would lead me to believe that it's coming in from the road, at least from the piping and from the bioswale work. That drainage there is pretty fluid straight down, and it's not going to raise the groundwater table in that area. The only other thing I can think of is that, again, we talked about a possible water leak. I think Ray from the fire district has done some pretty significant checks in the area up on High Street to see if there's any leaks up on High Street. I don't believe there's any leaks on Park Street, from what I understand. I think he's checked his water production, and things are pretty consistent and not evident of a leak, and maybe Dave can confirm that. It was wet when we were down there the last time I was down there, maybe a month or so ago. Pretty wet in the backyard, as Dave indicated, pretty dry in the front yard. And again, going through the basements, there's no evidence of floor drains in the basement, so I'm not sure that there's unless it's buried or it's under concrete or there's been concrete poured over a floor drain. I'm not really sure. There's no evidence of a floor drain. We went back through our daily reports, and everything that we found, again, we were deep, 14 feet. Everything that we found piping-wise coming from the south or the north side of the road, whether it was whatever we found, we reconnected so that there wasn't any sort of mystery. Sometimes maybe you'll find a pipe and you talk with someone and they say, "Oh, that's abandoned," and maybe it wasn't abandoned. Maybe it was an actual drain for something. We just connected everything that we found coming in from either side on the way up through. So unless we didn't see it, unless the contractor didn't see it, I don't think that there's a missed pipe, and we did go back through daily reports to double check that. So I'm somewhat at a loss too. I know Dave and I have had a lot of conversations about it, and talking through scenario after scenario. I don't necessarily have a good answer.
Without denigrating anyone's efforts to this point, like would fresh eyes be worth looking at
What
it?
are you suggesting?
I don't know, just someone who has maybe not had the background, not had the experience with this particular project.
Well, I was under the assumption that Sam Glazer was bringing someone in, so.
Judy, is Sam pursuing that idea?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Sam late this afternoon, and he has now talked to 3 different engineering companies. The first 2, too busy, can't get to it, so sorry, and it's like a week or 2 weeks to get to that point. So now he's in conversation with a third who said, yeah, I think I can come and take a look at it. Sam is convinced that any remediation plan, without knowing what's causing it, could be ineffective. And why would we spend money on remediation for something, and hire a remediation company who, as he understands it, takes their instructions from the engineer who figures out what's wrong and tells them what needs to be done to fix it. And to rely on the remediation company to just do a kind of what it usually doesn't work for Sam. He said that he wants to have an engineer take a look at it. And yet we're both concerned about the cost. I've talked with some other folks about these kinds of things, and they were saying the engineering costs can like go on forever, and that there is a way to find out what's going on with the water underground. But it is expensive, and it is maybe very time-consuming as well to figure out if there's moving water down there or something going on. There's a way to do it, but for myself, I don't care to know exactly why it's happening. I just want it to stop in my basement. I just want my basement fixed so it doesn't penetrate my basement any longer. What do I have to do? And I feel like I have absolutely no background or training or anything in this, so I don't even know where to start. I don't know who is a good company. I don't know who has the necessary experience or anything. So I'm looking for help. I'm not looking to make a big problem for people. I'm just looking to solve the problem I have in my basement.
Dave, do you know if any of your contacts at the state of Vermont have any expertise in hydrology?
Well, there's people out there, there's tons of people out there that can do it, but I would be fine with hiring, I think the town hiring someone if we knew it was our problem. But, we, like Jason said, we walked out back. The front lawns were dry. The side yard on the east side of Judy's house and the backyards were very wet. We found an old drain line that was to a water fountain, an old clay tile line that was in the backyard that no one knows where that went to. There's a lot of impervious surface around there. There were other things. I didn't want to mention this, but Judy doesn't have a door over her bulkhead stairs for her exterior of her house. So
Excuse me?
there's
what?
a lot of asphalt driveway. There's a lot of pavers, and we've looked at all those too. We've had some heavy rains again, like I said earlier, where we've seen washouts and flooding that we've never seen before. So it very easily could change. The little brook that runs down, and goes underneath Franklin Street has run high this year. When I was out at Arnold District earlier this year for the culvert pre-bid, that thing was just cranking like it did when Irene happened. There's a lot of water right now in the ground, and next year it could be dry. I don't know, but we have exhausted everything we can. That when we thought, geez, maybe there was something wrong in the road, and I've called Mike on things too, with stuff with this. We have exhausted every avenue we can, and I don't know if we're the right person to hire an engineer to look for a problem that we
Could
didn't
you
create.
recommend a company that might be a second opinion to Judy and Sam?
Well, the only ones I know are the ones that have worked for the town, so I'm sure there would be kind of a conflict there. Otter Creek Engineering does stuff with the fire district, and we use Du Bois and King, and we use Aldrich and Elliott. There's other ones out there, but
Well, those 3 are reputable firms, and that might be a starting point to start to get second opinions.
Does Lincoln Hydrology, they do that?
I don't know what they do. Lincoln Applied Geology, I
Yeah.
don't know what they do we've never used them.
Well, I feel like we've been deserted. It's like no water problems for years and years and years, and then in the course of 1 year, we have this, not just a problem, a big problem. For weeks and weeks, I mean, really, Sam was keeping track of this on his phone and getting increasingly frustrated when he was at like day 57 of still 5 inches of water in the basement and not looking like it was gonna go anywhere at that point. You know, we don't know where to turn next. So we need some support from the town, and I don't think it's unreasonable for us to ask for that. We're taxpayers, we sit there, we pay our water bills, we pay our whatever bills, and this has changed, and we did not change anything. Yes, there's paved driveway there, it's been there since I've owned the place for 18 years. The bulkhead doors have been the same, the water isn't coming in through the bulkhead. The water comes off the roof and smashes on the bulkhead and moves across the pavement and off as it flows off into Sam's side yard. The driveway's canted so that when the snowpack that falls off my back roof hits the side yard there and it melts, it glazes. I have glare ice on the driveway all winter. I'm, you know, putting salt and chopping ice because it moves that way across Sam's area and then off into his side yard. And we haven't had any problems in years and years, and now it isn't a little problem, it's a big problem.
What do you think could be done going forward?
Seth, I have no idea. I'm going to just say it again, like,
Yeah.
we have inspected and, you know, like Jason said, we've dived, we've cameraed, we've had rural water out there with Ray doing leak detection, we've pulled manholes, we've walked in yards, we've done everything. Like, it's not coming from Park Street, and I don't know how we're supposed to fix it if it's not ours to fix. The backyards out there are wet. There's a lot of houses there, that's not on us. I mean, that's the backyards.
Well, I guess my final thing is like, would any of you be satisfied to have if you have this problem in your basement, would you be satisfied with just being told, go find out, go figure it out?
I guess I'm gonna answer that, Judy. I have had that problem in my basement. And I don't live in town. And what I had to do is I had to figure out where that water was coming from myself. What I found was that it came off my roof. My ground over the years had changed, and it was letting the drainage come down into my cellar and then coming in. So after I changed my drainage and stuff on the outside, I was able to correct my problem that was coming into my cellar.
But do you think that's a reasonable kind of explanation for 4 houses in a row who never had a problem, and now all 4 houses have a problem?
I mean, you asked the question.
Yeah.
I just answered your question
Right.
with my experience, and that's what I had to do is, I had to go figure out where that problem was on my own.
Well, you're busy next week?
But I understand what you're saying, but just, I was just answering your question with
Yeah, I
a water issue, that's all.
And it certainly sounds like when you find out what's wrong, if the town had any part in it, I certainly would be interested in the town stepping up and taking responsibility for.
Well, I think Dave has expressed that
Well,
already.
exactly, and that's why I'm just paraphrasing.
Well, I think that, saying that we've left you, stranded, that's not true. We have been out there a lot, and when Sam said that he was hiring another engineer, we kind of backed away. I think that's reasonable for us to do. We did all the testing that we could. And, if they found something that was on the town, we would have totally corrected it. But I didn't know that there wasn't one hired until you came to see me yesterday asking what we were doing about it, or yesterday, last week.
Last week.
Other thoughts? It sounds like it might be beneficial if you and or Sam can try and arrange for some outside eyes to come in and diagnose it.
Well, and that was something that we were hoping that the town could help us with, in that even if it's on our dime, et cetera, they don't return our calls like they might return the calls from the town.
I did call one of them that Sam asked me to call, and no one's asked me to call anybody else again, so, you know, he asked me to call Dwayne King, and I followed up with him, and I think they got back with him and said they were too busy.
Do you have any engineering firms that you might suggest, Mike?
No, we usually use Du Bois and King, Otter Creek, and Dean, A&E, same as the town has always dealt with. They're kind of the big three in the area that do a lot of the surrounding towns also.
Do you know who's been contacted?
Do I know no, I'm not, I know he talked to Du Bois and King. He thought that they had somebody in the Brandon office who had experience in this area, and then discovered that that was not the case. And I'm not sure who this latest engineering company is. And Sam's kind of gone, to be honest with you, I thought that Sam had gone off in a direction of contacting an engineering company to kind of help devise a remediation plan. But no, he's concerned that without knowing the source of the problem, the remediation plan can't be trusted.
Well, I guess we're hearing the same names, so I guess,
Does the water district use the same engineers?
They use Otter Creek Engineering.
Around there. I didn't know if Ray might have some names that
They might.
they
I
could
think
throw out there.
they've used them for a long time.
What's that?
I think they've used Otter Creek for a long time.
Yeah.
well, it sounds like those same three companies are the local operators. And I guess I would make sure that they've all been tried. I'm far out of my field of knowledge on this.
That's my problem too.
Yeah. It sounds like there's not a ready answer, other than to try to have someone come in and diagnose the problem, and it sounds like the folks who could do that are a small pool of engineering firms.
There's a group called Dufresne Group that's out of St. Johnsbury, but they're around. MSK out of Bennington might be able to. I don't have their numbers, but certainly look them up. MSK.
Just out of curiosity, Judy, is there gutters on any of these houses?
I have some gutters, Sam has none. He's got the really
He's
high-pitched
got the high
roofs.
peak, right?
Yeah. But again, none of that has changed.
Right.
What was there has always been there.
Yep.
I think Dave's point has been that, weather has changed some, and that we haven't experienced always the same patterns recently that we were used to.
Weather patterns have changed a lot here. I mean, we get these crazy torrential rains that bring 1 or 2, or as we witnessed a few weeks ago, 3 inches. I think Steve had 4.28 inches measure at the wastewater plant from Saturday to Monday when we had some of the flooding issues in town. We're getting stronger storms. It's dropping more water at a shorter time. It's what it is. I mean, look at how many times we've had to deal with Newton Road,
So, all we have to suggest, I think, at this point is to try to get some qualified folks in to come and take another look. And the
And
list of names is-
how do we find those qualified folks?
Well, I think we've issued the names that
Yeah,
we're
well,
aware of.
I'll come back to get the names to Dave and proceed from that point.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, all we want is the problem fixed.
Well, I'm sure if the problem were able to be identified, and I'm sure that the town would have corrected anything that was the town's responsibility, but it sounds like the problem isn't yet been identified. So it can't be determined whether it's the town's responsibility to fix it or whether it's the landowner's responsibility.
Absolutely, you know, and we just are looking for help and trying to figure out, like you, the town has more experience with this stuff than we do. And we're looking for some help and support in finding potential help to do the fixing. Because we're not, you know, like, it took, for the first time when Sam called an engineering company, it took 2 weeks for them to say, sorry, I'm too busy.
Well, I think all that can happen is to suggest that you try and contact some more, contact them all at the same time. You know, they'll understand if you
Yeah.
call one of them off because the other one took the job or something.
Right.
Sorry, we don't have a better answer.
Still leaves me frustrated and upset.
Understood and shared. Are there other folks tonight with questions for the town manager? Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name's Kevin Cornett. I live over at Champlain Street near the Baptist Church over there. There's a curb that runs towards Sudsbury that cuts into the road a bit. If you see the white line, the white line as it goes in, it runs directly into the curb, and there's been numerous people that have gotten a lot of flat tires from there, and they pulled up in front of our house, the church's house, and we're looking for that, the town maybe look into it and find out if it's too sharp cut in, if it's something that could be identified, such as some yellow paint on it, or something to identify it so that it stands out more, because there's nowhere else in town that I've ever seen where the road cuts in enough. People driving towards town from Sudsbury, or not, excuse me, the other way, they're going towards Sudsbury, they always go into the yellow line a little bit to go around it, people that are familiar with the area. And I'm sure that some of you have actually been going down that road and seen it and kind of drive over a little bit closer to the yellow line. I feel that creates a possible danger for people because of the fact that they are getting closer to the yellow line, they are doing blowouts. At least 5 people have had a blowout since I've been there in the last 2 years. Just recently, I spoke to the town manager. He came and looked at it. I know he had some opinions on it, and we thought maybe that moving it would be a good idea. If that's not cost effective, you know, there's always other alternatives. And, you know, we're just looking for some help to prevent people from having blowouts and causing any kind of danger. I mean, I got a little 8-year-old here who walks down that road, and I really don't want, you know, somebody to have a blowout and end up into the church's house or onto my house, or even on the sidewalk when we're walking down the road, so.
Well, thank you for raising that to the board. I'm familiar with it, and in fact, I drove it tonight at quite a slow rate to try to check out what was going on.
Yeah.
I'll ask the town manager to talk about, I mean, that curb is a very recent placement of curb, and that was done as part of a really large, carefully engineered project. My personal guess is that it was partly done for pedestrian safety to get some space between the sidewalk, which on the corner, it's the sidewalk, the curb, and the road. And I think what happens down toward the end of the church, toward the driveway, is you have the sidewalk, some green space, the curb, and the road. And I think that probably is safer for pedestrians. But Dave, what do you have to say about that spot?
Well, you're right about that, that it is, the road is really wide in the intersection, and it does narrow down, which most intersections do when they leave at an intersection. I actually went back there a few days later and spoke with
Mary Lynn
Mrs.
Mrs. Bowe.
Yeah, Mary Bowe.
And, you know, we had a really good conversation about it, and looking at the area that, you know, first thing she said was when they had kids, they didn't want them to ride their bikes on the sidewalk because there was no protective, you know, curb there, so cars could easily jump curb and, or not curb, and, you know, and cars accelerate very fast there going down Champlain Street. We witnessed it when we were standing there. So the curb is there for a reason, and actually it ties in with the old part of Champlain Street where it does narrow down a bit, but the curb is just as close on that side as it is on the other side, with the existing curb. We looked at, we could extend the fog line down So where the curb angles in, we could run the fog line there and then do a delineator post like in that area. But I think taking that curb out, and plus there's a fire hydrant just kind of off a little bit there too. So that curb is serving multiple purposes.
Does that go into the white fog line? That curve?
No, the fog line goes into the curb, so there's no fog line on Champlain Street on the town portion until it gets past the highway garage.
But wherever the fog line stops, there's still, say, an 11-foot lane.
Yep. Well, it's actually, it's 10.3 or 10.4
Right,
there.
so it's over 10 feet
Right.
wide. I mean, we can't correct people's driving behaviors.
Right.
I mean, a typical vehicle is 8.5 feet wide, a larger vehicle, say a dump truck even. It still gives you 1.5 feet of room away from either line, which is more than enough for typical driver. Why people are going out in the yellow line, I really couldn't tell you. We can't correct any driving habits.
Have you driven down there, sorry? Have you driven down?
Yes,
there?
every morning I drive through
Okay.
there, yes, because I go to
And
New York
Have
through
you
that
seen
way.
that? I mean, I don't see why the town can't just paint it yellow or put a pole there to help identify it. Because I mean, even in the winter time, people are hitting it, plow trucks. I know they've had some trouble with it as well. I think it's a simple fix to ask to
So is this-
paint it, not to cut it back if you don't have to. But also to correct your assumption there that the fire hydrant was near that area. The fire hydrant is much further away from that whole area than the curb would serve to protect from.
Well, it's on the other side of the sidewalk, but if a car is accelerating and decides to not pay attention and drive right where that curb angles out, it would definitely hit the fire hydrant. So we certainly can extend the fog line a little bit, and like I mentioned earlier today, when we were talking about, we can put a delineator post right there, and, you know, it's reflective.
Sure.
But, I mean, I can tell you when I was talking with Mrs. Bove, cars were turning on that street and accelerating rather quickly because they know the 50-mile-an-hour zone is a quarter of a mile away.
Do you like the idea of a delineator post?
What
that would-
exactly is the delineator post?
I was gonna have someone explain that, because I
Please,
don't know.
please.
It's just a reflective post, we put them out a lot to mark guardrail and bridge for during winter season, so we know where it starts and ends. They're fiberglass, it's just a reflective rod, basically, that we can just stick in the
I'm open
ground.
for any suggestion that would work, just, you know, it doesn't affect me, the thing, I drive down that road, I live there. I haven't had a blowout, but because I've seen other cars there multiple times, it's been a concern for just, you know, other motor vehicles. But I'm happy with whatever you guys come up with there.
You know, I think driver,
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
I think like we have 2 bridges that are technically 1-lane bridges in town that people seem to get in and out of all the time. And the speed limit's the same on Wheeler Road as it is on Champlain Street right there, so,
I think a delineator post would give you a
you know.
step forward.
you
Yeah.
know,
It's a
Yep,
easy way to mark something. And if they hit the curb, they're probably gonna take the delineator
Right.
post out, so.
yeah.
I wouldn't suggest putting a metal one up, like an
No,
actual bridge
they're, no, the
marker.
fiberglass ones we put out for.
Fiberglass one with a reflective dot on the top.
Okay, so it sounds like they'll be proceeding with extending the fog line and putting the vertical marker there, and we'll see how that goes, but
Fingers crossed.
I did, as I said, I'm familiar with it, and I did drive it in different vehicles very recently, and I think a casual, responsible driver should not have trouble with that curve. Or
Usually people
the
that I've
yellow line.
seen are elderly or some of the younger people, I mean, the ones that, the first person I ever seen was this younger girl, and she probably had her license for a few months, and I know she hit it. And then I've seen elderly people hit it from there on out for the most part, and struggle with, you know, not being able to change your tire and very nervous and scared because they hit it. So
Well,
I'm thankful that you guys are gonna try to do something,
I
so
mean,
appreciate that.
it's not the worst place for something like that to happen. There's a driveway right there, the church
Exactly.
parking lot's often got room. So hopefully they're able to get off the road safely and attend to their vehicle, but. Okay, thank you for raising it, and thank you for the solution.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
so
we'll try this,
Jason
yes.
is with us. If-
Okay, all right, so we're gonna dance around a little bit here. We do have the engineer, and to make best use of his time, we'll go back to the wastewater meeting, if that's, Charlene, is that? Cool with that? Okay, so at 7:54, we'll recess the select board. We're gonna call the sewer commissioners back to order. Select board back to order. So, are there further public questions from the folks on Zoom or from the folks in the room for the town manager? Yes, sir, David Roberts.
Thank you, I'm David Roberts from the president of the Brandon Library. I just wanted to talk about the parking in front of the library. I know there was some discussion last meeting about marking the parking. And, you know, the library is in support of marking those so it's safe for the neighbors, but we also want to make sure that we get enough parking. I think that's an issue for us. And the drive-in parking allows for most of the staff and for the folks that, you know, might know that don't need to park close to the library to park there. And it allows the parking in front of the library to be a little bit more open for quick drop-ins and elderly folks, and that kind of things, folks with kids. So we just wanted to make sure that you knew that we need every parking spot that we can get. And I understand that David is working with someone to design a layout, I think.
Well, our highway foreman, and Sean and I have looked at it a couple times, and we talked to, well, the folks just sold their house, but the people that live right behind the library. And we're gonna mark it last year, but we couldn't get any paint because of shortages.
Supply chain.
So, you know, we listened to Helen and
Mary Ann.
I had some good concerns. I see like that is a long, so it's kind of a long view when they're pulling out of their driveway. So, a couple things we looked at with that first house was delineating an area. You see it's actually like where the library parking is on the east end. There's a spot that's hashtagged that kind of looks like, you know, would be a sort of a bump out curve. We can do that on the drives so that there's enough space for people to be able to.
Well, that's a good idea.
But, you know, I think we should probably talk with Mary too and see, you know, really, we can go down the road and we can see what really needs to be done. But that's what we looked at doing last year, was, you know, continuing it down sort of one more run to another driveway, which I think is her shared driveway redetermined, so.
Is it, so that being said, is it possible that perhaps the library staff could be encouraged to make use of parking even further along Park Street and walking in, you know, a little bit further distance than perhaps the head-end parking slots there?
Sure.
Not trying to inconvenience them, just trying to like recognize village life kind of.
Sure. I think we usually have 3 staff cars there. And I think typically that's where they're parking, is in that space. But we're glad to work with the town to figure it out.
Is there any possibility for parallel parking on the opposite side of the street? Because I know when I go to the library, that's often where I park, just because it's easy to pull out.
Well, it's kind of set up for parallel parking anyway, it's just we didn't paint a ton of lines on Park Street. So, I mean, we have a lot of paint on Park Street already, but I know like when there's weddings at the end, it seems to be utilized, and you know, folks seem to be parking on that for other events. I know Foley's customers park there.
Well, I thought if you had some paint and you were doing lining,
If we had some paint.
because it would be helpful for also people to know how far up they can park, because the temptation is to keep parking and parking until pretty soon you're a little too close, and that's where if you had lines showing where parallel parking is allowed, you would
Too close to like the intersection?
right,
To the
right,
next
because
road.
I mean it does start to
Yeah.
narrow to
Yeah.
where you shouldn't be trying to parallel park,
Right.
and that's where I think the lines would help.
Yeah.
My last comment is just, all of that is great, and we do parallel park on the other side there. I think that's commonly done. I just want us to make sure that we maximize the parking number of spaces. We have a lot of folks coming that park there all day long, that come from the Brandon Inn or from town and park there, which is great. It's just that, you know, several times a day, the parking lots can be all full. So, just trying to be careful.
So how would adding, say, parallel parking, official parallel parking spots increase your handicap spot parking? Because Isn't it like a 10%?
It wouldn't for parallel, because we wouldn't have the access for folks, because you kind of have to have two spots for, one for wheelchair accessible, and you need curb that was, you know, lowered so they could get on it. That's one thing I was thinking though, if we start paying lines, you might lose space, because I can't remember what the length of a parallel parking stall is, but it's definitely bigger than a vehicle, you know. And I can park two of my Miatas in one of those usually. But we might lose space to
Yeah.
park if we did that too, so it's certainly something we can look into.
And I'm not suggesting that we we mark all the parallel parking. I think people, it's just that one section because it's wider. It's much wider, it's got room to actually pull in. So it's just that one section that's a lot wider that if it's not marked, it's the chance, if people park there parallel, then there's 3 or 4 spots that are no good for the day.
Well, our first thing when we looked at it last year without paint was to continue the drive-in angled parking and just do that, you know, the delineation at the end of the driveway so that folks could see when they come out. So I'd like to still move forward with that, because that's what, I mean, we all thought it was a good solution, but I don't want to inconvenience, you know, a couple others. So we'll talk with them and look at it and see what we can come up with. I think if we give them enough space to come out of their driveway, they'll be fine. And if folks honor that, will be even better.
Their main concern was visibility.
Yeah.
Looking left, I think.
It's a wide street, and it's kind of, you know, they gotta come up a little bit, and when there's a car,
Well, and at that end, it's to the, like, they're coming in around a corner,
Yeah.
so to speak. Like, you don't have a long line of sight if you're coming on the south side
Yeah.
trying to look at
You're on
traffic
the-
coming from the west.
you're on the side of the road where cars are accelerating. It's very
Yeah.
similar to the Champlain Street issue that,
Right.
so.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Further questions for the town manager?
Oh my gosh.
Don't worry, Bill, we've done liquor, we've done sewer.
Okay,
all kinds of
Jesus.
stuff. We've taken some stuff out of order. All right, so we'll move along from that to another fairly structureless segment called public comment and participation. So any item not on the agenda later that you'd like to raise to the board's attention right now, anything from the board? Anything from the public, either on Zoom or in person, items that you don't see later on the agenda that you'd like discussed tonight? Had enough. Okay, there's always public comment available on every agenda item, and if something pops into your mind later, we can always talk about it. All right, so I'm gonna say 3 is done, 4 is done, 5 is done. 5A, Energy Committee funding request. We're up for that.
If I may, I have a little audio-visual,
Okay,
sophisticated.
Jim Emerson is chair of the Brandon Energy Committee.
Excuse my handiwork here. So we have a request for the Brandon Energy Committee for the parade entry that we would like support from the select board on. We are committed. Our committee tasked with the mission of helping the town reach certain goals for reliance on renewables and reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We think the means that we have to accomplish that task are 1, education, and 2, inspiration. If you have something else to suggest, we're open. It is through our ability to educate and inspire that people in town will take actions to move towards these goals. So we think a placard such as this, suggesting that fuel costs for EVs are less than 5 cents a mile, gas is 20+ cents a mile, is educational. It is perhaps going to cause some people to pause and maybe think about changing their behaviors. My Chevy Bolt, 5 years, 65,000 miles, 1 repair, a brake job after 5 years. This is information we think is valuable, educational, and helpful. We want to put it on placards on our cars as we drive through the parade. We think it's, we need to get this kind of information out. We expect to use it both at the parade, at the Davenport Fest, at the Solar Fest gatherings that are coming up. There's I think, open house, with chamber, we want to park our cars at that chamber event with these kind of placards on. We want to put them in the Solar Fest September activity and use them in the future. So we think, and we also want to build a rapport with people, develop a relationship. Because we don't think we can educate and inspire until we have a relationship. So we are intending to enter into the parade with an entry that will include two electric vehicles. It will include a chariot driven by an electric lawnmower. It will include electric bikes and so forth. We want to have T-shirts for our committee members and volunteers at that event. We want to use the T-shirts again when we pass out surveys at Hannaford and at Walgreens, because we don't want to, we're trying to save the costs on the mailing or cut them back some and hand them out and have a chance to have personal interactions. T-shirts, I would like to, this is a little sample of what T-shirts we hope to produce will look like with our kind of logo we've developed for the Energy Committee. They're pretty attractive and will be a good identifier for our volunteers and committee members. This is our logo byline saying finding solutions for our future. And the parade this year actually is about, I don't know the twist of the phrase Bill does, but it is about the future. And so we think that's an important thing. So we're asking for, and we'll have some banners. In fact, we'll carry a banner that announcing the Davenport Festival for their benefit to support that event. So we're asking for money for some banners, placards that will be of this nature, and T-shirts. It shouldn't be more than 600. We hopefully will trim it back to 500. But we'd like to be your committee to authorize, or the select board to authorize us to spend that. To authorize us to spend that for these reusable placards and identifiable T-shirts. And I've said enough. Answer any
Thank you, Jim,
questions.
and thanks to your committee for the, I was gonna say energy, but that's not, that's cheesy. Thanks for the spirit that they're putting into their work here. What's the pleasure of the board?
Don't they have a budget that they use anyways?
We did put some money in the budget, right?
So the budget doesn't go in effect until July 1. They have they asked for $3,200 in our budget meetings. On a little research, I mean, I'll tell you, Jim asked me for the money. I didn't think that it fit in with what they requested for at our budget meetings, and that's what I told them. I thought this was more for training and surveys and everything. And so, and even in our town report, there's a little footnote right up here on the Energy Committee line, and it's number 2, and it says townwide survey. So I know that that's what, and then we had received this during the budget season that had survey information on it. And I just feel like this is a thing that shouldn't be, coming out of our operating budget, that it would, and my suggestion was, it sounded like it was a great thing to do a fundraiser on. So Jim didn't agree with me, and that's why we're sitting here talking about it now.
I'd like to suggest that I think this is a great expenditure of money to support the Energy Committee. I think these are reusable items that they'll have years of benefits to them. And I think it's appropriate for them to come to the board when they need funding for one of their ideas. And so I appreciate your presentation, and I'd like to see us provide them with the money they need for their parade.
My hope is that it can be coming out of, hopefully there's some funds left in this year's budget that might be able to squeeze into this if possible.
Other comments, other thoughts?
I guess I'd have to agree with, after just listening to Dave, I think it should be a fundraising thing. Like sell t-shirts and,
So if I ask you for a contribution, will you get a tax deduction for contributing to our committee?
possible.
Okay, so I can become an independent fundraiser.
My personal hesitation is that we can't approve spending money on an ad hoc kind of basis. We approve spending money in a comprehensive kind of basis once a year as a result of a pretty thoughtful, deliberative process, very inclusive of the public and members of town boards and committees. And I think that that plan is the plan that we need to ride with. And when we occasionally will get requests that come to the select board for worthy projects from time to time, and often they are of small dollar amounts compared to the large, operating budget of $3 million. But it's just not good practice to be taking things one at a time over the course of 50 weeks. And I can't support spending money that's not been part of that process. And I will, I guess, admit that my recollection during the process of building the budget this year is that the funds that we were allocating for next year's budget for the Energy Committee were dedicated to a townwide survey. So I feel like this is a sponsorship opportunity, it's that kind of thing, and it's not something I could support from an operating budget point of view. Because I don't think it's respecting the process that ensures that all the stakeholders get a fair shot during the budget writing.
So the question then is, if I expend the money July 1st, is that a problem?
It's a problem that we would weigh in on that, because it's not the board's position to approve a $600 purchase. It's the
But our
town.
budget calls for energy conservation displays in the town hall and library. Well, if it's on a car instead of in the town hall, I suppose that's something to talk about. Promotional materials. I mean, those. So you mean if I didn't anticipate this expenditure, if I don't anticipate expenditure 9 months from now, it's, and I
That's
have
the
ways to juggle the budget I do have.
Well, one, that's sort of the position that the town works upon, yes.
Yeah,
Is
but
if
it doesn't-
if we don't anticipate something 18 months ahead of now, it's our
But
tough
to be
luck.
fair,
I just
we're lucky
understood
to have
you-
Dave, be able to work with a total bottom number, and he, works the
Yes.
year through.
And that's the more important part of my response to what Jim's just raised, is that the board wouldn't be considering a $600 expenditure because that's within the town manager's judgment, whether that's a legitimate / appropriate expenditure of a budgeted line item or whether it's not. Do you know
So
what I'm saying?
you're saying I shouldn't come to you because it's.
Nobody comes to us. That's not how it works. The process is that the town manager manages the budget that the voters approve after the board submits it to the voters to approve. Otherwise, we'd be making a bunch of
Yeah, okay.
decisions on
I understand.
small dollar amount kind of things, and I think that in our form of government, that's the town manager's position, and I'm not inclined to preemptively say that I'm gonna push the board to direct the town manager to make a determination about the propriety or not of spending a certain amount of money.
It seems as a matter of precedent, though, that the committees should have a certain latitude to work their process and to have their meetings.
The energy committee. Is that what you're talking about?
The committees in general.
Okay.
So any committee that has a budget and a funding source with the town. And And while it's appropriate for Dave to make sure there's not malfeasance, nobody's pocketing money or taking a trip to the Bahamas or something, if the committee decides to spend their money in different ways that they've thoughtfully come up with, it seems like they should have latitude to spend their funds any way they see fit.
I respectfully disagree, because nobody has spending authority but the select board. And the select board, in the town manager form of government, only has all of those powers of the select board, the authority of the select board to spend money reside in the town manager.
But
It's
by
not
giving
in the boards and
by
committees.
giving the committee a budget, you now give them access to funds to spend for their committee's purposes.
I think you give them a not to exceed line,
Right.
which the town manager determines how it's going to be spent.
I have a problem with that. Because
But
that seems like it
that's the
implies,
statute.
it implies that the town manager has a veto power on every committee's
I'm not
process.
vetoing it, it's just not there right now. That money's available on July 1. That budget is coming out, this is what was voted on to
So
start
you,
July 1.
so you agree that, come July 1, it's a matter of them to spend the money as
What
they...
did I tell you in the town office when you came in?
You said you weren't sure if you had money this year.
I said, well, I don't think we have money this year, but so if you can somehow make them bill you one after July 1, you're probably gonna be okay. Isn't that what I said to you? And then you sent me an email saying that you needed all this done right now. And it's not available until
Yeah, well,
July
the
1.
reason-
I
Okay,
don't
well, the
think we
reason,
should
I
be
heard different
spending.
reasons why you didn't,
Well,
approve it.
I don't
But
think that it fits underneath the criteria, because it certainly doesn't from the letter that you sent, and now it sounded like that you were going to kind of go back on the survey that you came to the board for the presentation during the budget, saying that you were changing things up there, so, I mean, the money there clearly said it was for this survey. I mean, what's gonna happen in 6 months when they don't have enough money to do this survey thing? Now we're gonna ask for more?
No. I think for them to manage their budget well is part of their committee's responsibility.
What other committee manages their budget? I don't think that it works that way, Tim.
Nobody.
Well, who's managing the Davenport Fest expenditures? They seem
I
to
believe
be.
that's going through the Brandon Rec Department.
And that's us, of course, but
Well, Bill's not a committee, he's a department head, so there's a little difference there.
I think that the precedent that I recall during budget season was talking about the parallel to like Middlebury, for example. Middlebury makes a decision that whenever they have a committee, the committee has a budget, and it's modest, but it's an amount that allows them to operate, to incur modest expenses that their committee requires to be successful. And that's certainly the model that I'm promoting, that when we have committees in Brandon, that we give them some degree of modest funding, and then the freedom to spend that as their committee sees fit.
Well, I think we did that during the budget process,
Right.
starting July 1. And it sounds like if they order T-shirts with a bill date after July 1,
But it usually gets approval from myself or department head when something like that happens, like, for
right,
instance.
but
when-
we gave them a budget to work with
Yeah.
starting July 1.
Correct.
To say if they need $600 or $800 for shirts. To go, it doesn't sound like you would have too much of an issue with that $600 right now.
Well, I just stated that, I don't think that was how it was presented to all of us in the budget committee, and that's,
It was for a survey is what that money was
Well,
allocated for.
it was-
It sounds like it's not gonna be for a survey.
Well, we had 3 items. One was for an energy survey that we needed, expected to need $1,000. That's actually going to be far more than that, so we just tried to figure out a different route to deal with it. Because we found out through clearer information, we didn't want to overextend that expenditure. We had energy conservation displays for 200, promotional materials for 2,000.
so, I'm not trying to be difficult here, I'm just trying to follow the rules. And with the budget request, it does say promotional materials for energy efficiency programs such as Efficiency Vermont incentives, heat squad energy audits, and a separate one for food waste educational information, as well as mailing distribution costs of the same. That's pretty specific. Which my response to my email was, well, it doesn't sound like this is used for, you know, programs or educational materials, it's for a parade.
Outreach materials.
It seems like a fundraising would be a better source for,
So we're authorized to go raise funds.
well, you're a committee,
Can I
committees
tell-
do an outreach for like a fundraiser or?
Brown Rec does it all the time.
I think the committees have done like grant applications and so forth, and then, you know,
We were discouraged from going to the businesses in town about asking.
well, right, so I think.
So who do we raise funds from?
I would raise funds from solar companies, like, I mean, there's, or Green Mountain Power, like, there's a number of people in this industry now with like flush cash who would benefit from a higher awareness of the benefits of going electric.
I wholeheartedly disagree with the idea that this committee is supposed to be a fundraising enterprise. But if that's a new assignment,
I don't think it's supposed to be a fundraising enterprise. I think, though, that as an overarching kind of framework that we're all working on, we've got to be very careful with what we spend money on. I sent an email out to the board today with an item from the Vermont Constitution, which I'm going to read because I find it's appropriate at the moment here. This is from the 9th article of the Constitution of the State of Vermont. It says a bunch of stuff that's not relevant to this conversation. And then it says, previous to any law being made to raise a tax, the purpose for which it is to be raised ought to appear evident to the legislature to be of more service to the community than the money would be if not collected. And my personal judgment is, I don't find that I could support the sentiment that the buying of t-shirts is really ever going to be of more service to the community than the money would be if not expended. And that's part of why the board shouldn't be making judgments like this. It's a management kind of decision, and I think he's kind of made his decision that there is no decision to make until the 1st of July, at least.
Yeah.
I have difficulty with the previous work on the Energy Committee has not shown a respect of the budget writing and adoption process. And I think that this is an example of either not understanding or not respecting the way that the process is.
Certainly, I may not have understood some pieces along the way, and I apologize if that's been consuming time here that I know you don't have much of, so I hear what you're saying.
Public comment? Folks with thoughts? I don't think there's any board action required.
And just for clarification, I
Yes.
guess I'm not quite sure what's being.
I think that's up to the town manager's judgment,
Okay.
and you and the town manager could have a discussion about that,
Okay.
or unless you want to make any kind of comment now.
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, thank you for that discussion. I think it was enlightening in several ways. Item 7 is appointments.
I gotta do 6.
6.
Oh, sorry. Item 6. Consider a reduction in the number of seats on the planning commission. And this is due to a number of folks having completed their service and some vacancies. And so we have right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the planning commission, plus 3 vacancies. And we are told in the memo from Elaine at the town office that one of the 5 on the committee is not going to be renewing their term after June 30th.
There's actually only gonna be 3 left.
There will only be 3 left.
Yeah.
Who else is leaving?
So,
Oh,
Jack will be on, Ralph Ethier and Bob Foley, senior.
so there will be 3 on.
So.
So we're losing Lowell Rasmussen, whose term ends,
Yeah, and he's.
and Bill Mills.
Bill Mills doesn't wanna redo it.
Okay.
So, the reason I asked to go from, I think the current number is 8,
Yes.
we can't have a quorum with 3, but if we
Right.
had the board at 5, the 3 would be a quorum, so they could actually conduct some business.
Okay. And that's within statute? I know there's a minimum and a
A
maximum.
minimum of 3, no more than 9.
3 or 9, okay. What's the pleasure of the board about reducing the number on the planning commission to 5?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, so discussion. All in favor of reducing the number of seats on the planning commission to 5, say aye.
All right.
Aye, it's approved. Okay, then we're on to appointments, and again, we've got a letter from Elaine at the town office, and we've got the big kind of summary of all the folks who are on the boards and committees.
I did put a letter in front of you today that came this
A letter
afternoon.
came today. Okay.
For Energy Committee, and just so you were aware of it, and whatever you want to do with it.
Okay. All right, so what's the pleasure of the board on Elaine's letter and the letter from Lolly Hoxie about the Energy Committee and so forth?
I don't think we're doing anything with the Energy Committee tonight.
Why not?
I think he's got one more, doesn't he? We can set the next time with that.
I have no idea what we're doing. There was an email that went that there were 2 names on it, and
I
I'd
thought he
say
wanted
that.
somebody appointed the 26th, next meeting, it'd be the 27th, actually. He said talk with the other person who was interested,
So,
whoever that might be.
Wade Davis was the second
Right.
person.
right.
So what's the number on the Energy Committee? The Energy Committee is
It would be
7? There are 7 on it now. Are we losing Lowell? Is
Lowell.
that in-
We're losing Lowell.
We're losing Lowell. And the number on the committee? We
It's
just
been,
increased it,
it's
didn't we?
been moving.
Yeah, I think I think it's up to 9.
Is it up to
I
9?
think it's pretty
No,
big.
wasn't gonna go more than 7.
7?
Should be.
Well, that would be
1,
8
2,
and 9, so the 2 that, the
7.
letters that came would be 8 and 9.
No,
But what would Lowell missing it be?
he was gonna pick one of the 2.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
Okay. So there's 7 on here
The
now.
Jim?
Jim.
Well, not, I mean, we're ultimately gonna.
Yeah, Elaine actually
Okay.
doesn't show any vacancies, so.
So what you're
That's
saying, so what you're saying
There's
is,
nothing else below
there are
that.
2 people willing to take seats on the Energy Commission, but the committee, but there's only 1 spot.
Right,
So,
So we
but
should
we don't
not,
have a letter of interest from the
From the
second
second
person yet.
so we shouldn't do anything with the first.
I think it's probably best to wait till the next one, that's what
That's what
Brian
you're
said.
That's what
Got
he
it.
was thinking.
Understood. Okay, nothing with the Energy Committee.
But we could say thank you for your interest, Lolly Hoxie, for,
Yep.
I'll just throw it in the packet for the next meeting.
Yeah, very good. So, the appointments as they have been checked, please thank Elaine for doing all the work to check people's interest and so forth.
Yeah.
The Development Review Board, 2 seats for 3-year terms ending in 2025, June 30th, John Peterson and Jack Schneider. There are 2 alternate spots on the Development Review Board available. For the Planning Commission, there are 3 seats available, but no.
2 seats, well,
2.
Well,
If it stays at
there will still be 2, okay. There will be 2 vacancies still, and there is interest from Jack Schneider, whose term ends this month, to take a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025. The Revolving Loan Fund Committee, 2 appointments for a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025, Stephanie Jerome and Karen Lynch. There's an opening for an alternate on that committee. The Rutland Regional Transportation Council, a 1-year term ending in 2023, David Atherton. There's an opening for an alternate on the Transportation Council. The Rutland Regional Planning Commission, a one-year term ending 2023, Jack Schneider, thank you, Jack, and alternate is an open spot. So what's the pleasure of the board on the list of appointments that have just been read?
Make a motion to approve
Well, second.
all of them.
Motion and a second to make all of the appointments that were just read off. And Charlene, you have that?
I do.
Well, or it's in the
She's
packet.
got everything.
I already put it.
You've got it there, okay.
So this list that Elaine just asked her to put this one on, it has all the.
Yeah, this is a good list.
Because we seem to always get hung up on what the dates are, so if you guys keep that until I give you another one next year, that'd be great. And I also, I think I'm going to try to get a ad together in the Reporter this week or next to just list the vacancies and see if we have any voids.
Okay. Public comment on the appointments? I would like to say, a quote from Elizabeth Andrew, "Volunteers do not necessarily have the time, but they do have the heart." And I think that that is true. Nobody really has the time, or very few people have the time available to sit on boards and committees like this, but it needs to happen, and this is how we govern ourselves, and if you have the heart to do it, it will be very rewarding. So I thank the folks who have stepped up to take all of these committee and commission spots. And if we're ready to vote, all in favor of making the appointments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. All right, we'll sign some papers, Jack, for the regional planning folks and get those off to you. Item 8 is adopting rules of procedure for the select board's hearings on vicious dogs. So we had a vicious dog hearing on May 23rd. We used the League of Cities and Towns model for such hearings, and this is an opportunity for us to formally adopt that model.
I make that a motion, seems like a good idea.
Yeah. Motion and a second, is there any discussion? All I've heard after the hearing that we had on May 23rd is that people felt that they had an opportunity to participate in the hearing, and I think people felt like a solution that was fair and reasonable was reached, which is about the best that we could have hoped for in a difficult situation.
So,
Yes,
the dog shelter, like the animal shelter.
Passion for Paws.
They were great to work with, and actually
Good.
Charlene and I did a little work on, we did had some meetings on Wheeler Road now. But, no, it was great, they, it worked out well.
They were
so-
able to place the dog
Yep,
in a new home.
yep, and
Yep.
she was really responsive, and so, yeah, it was a pleasure to work with them.
Good. That was a good outcome, absolutely. Public comment on this, this is just adopting formally for going forward what we used informally or on an ad hoc basis last time. All in favor of adopting those rules of procedure, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. What's the pleasure of the board on the warrant of bills?
Make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the warrant. It's in the amount of $189,684.11. Any questions on the bills? Public comment? All in favor of approval of the warrant, say aye. Aye, it's unanimous. So we're down to the executive sessions. I want to thank you all for attending tonight. Does anybody have any announcements for the good of the community? Nothing of that nature? Good. Bill Moore, excellent memorial observance, thank you.
That's not me, that's
Well,
all.
you stand up there on the gazebo. Okay, so we'll be at recess until we convene for the executive sessions. It's 8:46.